Today is Monday's Daf is Daf Tzadik. The last thing we learned was that we're going to focus on this right now. We had an argument between Rav Shimon and the Chachamim, and we already mentioned it a couple of times. What is the punishment for someone who's a Madiach Ir Hanadachas? He convinces the entire city. According to Chachamim, you get skila. According to Rav Shimon, you get chenek. The other thing is, everyone agrees when it comes to a masis, an individual inducing someone else to worship Avodah Zarah, you get skila. What about if it's a Navi doing it? The Chachamim say, well, Navi should be the same thing. He's a masis, convinces others to worship Avodah Zarah, he gets skila. But if Shimon holds, you only get chenek. And so now the Gemara says, what exactly is the Navi? What exactly is the Navi saying? So we're on the Tzadik Amud Aleph on the very top of the page. What is the Navi telling the people? This is Avodah Zarah. What about all other mitzvahs in the Torah? Is he saying part of the mitzvah exists and part of it doesn't? And for that also he deserves to be punished. So we're going to have two opinions here. Says the Gemara, this machlek is between Rav Shimon and Chachamim, whether it's skill or chenek is ba'oiker haguf. When it comes to Avodah Zarah, he completely undermines the mitzvah, doesn't exist, number one. Or the kiyum mitzvah, the bittul mitzvah. He said part of the mitzvah exists, but some of the details don't. The Avodah Kacham, only limited to Avodah Zarah. The Rahman Amar, the Torah clearly says that if that Navi over there comes along, should be killed if he speaks out against Hashem, and he says that he tries to lead you astray, min haderech, even from part of the road. Min is always part of. I feel it makes the derech. But what happens, let's say, other mitzvahs, it completely undermines the mitzvah, doesn't exist, then divrei hakol b'chenek. There's no argument there. Everyone agrees in that case. Other mitzvahs, you get a lighter punishment, chenek. And other mitzvahs, what about kiyum mitzvahs, bittul mitzvahs, b'shar mitzvahs? Other mitzvahs, he says, part exists, part doesn't. Divrei hakol potter. So you have three levels. Avodah Zarah, you always get, that's the machlek, skill chenek. When it comes to other mitzvahs, it depends. Completely eradicate the mitzvah, then everyone agrees you get chenek. If it's part mitzvah, yes, part of it, no, it's an avera, but you don't get punished. Mostly, but Rav Hamnuna has a question. It says in the pasuk, in that very pasuk, it says, "Laleches." But if he leads them astray from what Hashem told him, laleches to go. Laleches is a positive way. According to you, this pasuk is really only talking about Avodah Zarah. What positive mitzvahs in Avodah Zarah? It's only negative. Don't worship idols. There's nothing positive about Avodah Zarah. So how can you tell me it's limited only to Avodah Zarah? Other mitzvahs you have a positive and a negative. But if you're telling me that this whole argument of Shulchan Aruch is only limited to Avodah Zarah, where's the positive of lechus ba? So he's like lechus or mitzvah say. Ba zu mitzvah loisav. Lechus is to go forward and ba in it is loisav. He's arguing about Avodah Zarah. I say ba Avodah Kachavim heichem mishkachas. Where do you find a positive aspect of Avodah Zarah? Says the Gemara, yes you do. Targum of Chizah answers back, then he touched him. It says in the pasuk, I want you to destroy all the mizbachas when you get to Yisrael. That's a positive mitzvah. So it's possible, he says, Avodah Zarah exists, but you don't have to demolish their idols. So that's where it comes in. However, Rav Hamnuna argues Rav Chizah. Rav Hamnuna argues Rav Chizah. Omar, he says, no, it's not limited to Avodah Zarah, but it's as follows. Machlek is ba'oiker haguf. If you're undermining the entire mitzvah, I don't care whether it's Avodah Chacham, Avodah Zarah, Ben B'Shar mitzvah, any other mitzvah. I don't care. They're exactly the same. That's the argument. Chenek, even other mitzvahs. If you undermine it, skill or chenek, argument. Avodah Zarah has one stringency that the kiyum mitzvahs a bittul mitzvah yacham. When it comes to Avodah Zarah, I acknowledge there's one stringency that you don't have by Shar mitzvahs, and that is that if you say part of Avodah Zarah exists and part of it doesn't, for example, you don't have to destroy the idols. The Rachmana Amar min haderech. It says clearly min haderech. I feel it makes it haderech. They're still arguing. So Avodah Zarah, they're arguing. I agree with Rav Chizah, but what I'm adding is other mitzvahs, if he undermines the entire mitzvah, they're arguing whether he gets chil or chenek. Avo kiyum, and I agree with you as well. But if kiyum mitzvahs or bittul mitzvahs, shar mitzvahs, all other mitzvahs, they will hakol potter. Everyone holds potter. So where does Rav Hamnuna and Chizah argue? Only in one case, by shar mitzvahs. If you undermine the entire mitzvah. According to Rav Chizah, everyone agrees that you only get chenek in that case, because other mitzvahs. The pasuk is only talking about Avodah Zarah. And according to Rav Hamnuna, no. They're over there also, they're arguing whether you get chenek or you get skill. If somebody goes ahead, and Bryce is a bit cryptic. It says if somebody goes ahead and tries to undermine any mitzvah of the Torah, dover, a full thing, knows the entire mitzvah, chayiv is chayiv. Doesn't say what punishment. Lekayim mitzvah, vatal mitzvah. If he said part, Rab Shimon says potter. Sounds like from this brayse that the only time they're arguing is by key mixes and bittul mixes. And by if you undermine the entire thing, there's no argument because chayiv. Yet we learned before, everyone agrees that their argument is when you undermine the entire mitzvah of it for sure. What about so what's going on here? Because the Gemara if he said, I want you only worship idols for one day, it's like a bittul mix is a key mix. Everyone holds that you are chayiv. As if there's no argument. What's going on here? So Abaye Sovelo Krabchiza, Abaye holds like Krabchiza that's only about what where they argue. And he'll explain the Brayse according to that. Umetar like Krabchiza, will explain according to Krabchiza. And Rabba, who holds like Rav that not only are they arguing by Avodah Zarah in every case, but also other mitzvahs, if you undermine the entire mitzvah, the same argument, it will tell Rav Nuna, and will answer it as well. And Gemara explains. Rav Nuna. Abaye Sov, Abaye holds like Krabchiza, Umetar like Krabchiza. This is how he learns. This is how he learns the Brayse. Hamisnabe laka dover min Torah. Dover means an entire mitzvah. If you want to remove an entire mitzvah from the Torah, then it's talking about other mitzvahs. And what did Rav Chizah say? Other mitzvahs. Everyone agrees. You get chenek. You get hakov chenek. So it says it chayiv because it's unanimous. It doesn't tell you what the mitzvah is, but it's unanimous. There's no argument. Chayiv. The problem is it says there, but lekayim mitzvahs or levatul mitzvahs. Rav Shimon Poiter. What do you mean Poiter? We said before that if you are by other mitzvahs, talk about other mitzvahs now. If you do part, according to Chizah, you do part, and part yes and part no. Everyone agrees that you are Poiter. There's no argument. So why does the Brayse say only Rav Shimon? Says Rav Shimon Poiter. Well, what do you know about? Why is it mention Rav Shimon's name? Okay, you got a little problem. Then the Brayse continues. If he says, no, part mitzvah exists, part doesn't exist, chayiv. But the Brayse here, chayiv, is not unanimous. Everyone agrees that it's a machlekes of Shimon Chachamim. Chayiv, a punishment. In contrast to potter we said a minute ago. Markedisla. Rav Shimon says you get chenik, Chum says you get skill. So according to Abaye and Rav Nuna and Rav Chizah, we're talking about other mitzvahs when it starts off. However, also there's no difference between other mitzvahs and Avodah Zarah when it comes to undermining the entire mitzvah. So when we tell for Hillel and the Brayse, you're trying to undermine an entire mitzvah. It's not limited to other mitzvahs. Because he makes no distinction between other. And when it says chayiv, they're arguing, not chayiv unanimous. Chayiv, everyone agrees that you get punished. But what punishment? Markedisla. Skilo chenek, depending who you are. Then it says, what about the kayim mitzvahs or the vatul mitzvahs? If we are talking about all other mitzvahs, then there's no argument. Everyone agrees you are potter. All other mitzvahs, you acknowledge part of the mitzvah, you didn't have it, but you don't get punished for it. This part is exactly like a baya. And the last part of avodah is gechavim. It's part mitzvah exists, part doesn't. Chayiv, you're chayiv, and again, markedish and markedish. So the only difference is the first part between Abaye and Rabba is other mitzvahs you undermine the entire mitzvah. Is there the same argument of Shimon Chachamim or not? In any mitzvah, if a navi comes along and says, "Avoid al divrei Torah," I want you to go against a certain mitzvah of the Torah. Shmaloi. You listen to them. Eliyahu Navi told them to shecht outside of the Beis Hamikdash, to shchutit chutz. It was during the Easter of Bombas, and they did it because Eliyahu has a reputation of being a holy person. Chutz ma'avodah zarah. The only exception is avodah zarah. Afilu ma'amil chacham b'bem tzedkiyah. Even if he's able to stop the sun in the middle of the day and not move further, unbelievable miracle. Al tishamalai. Those limits purely a test. You don't listen because you cannot go. There's no way that the Eibishter will allow you to worship avodah zarah ever. Tanya, we learned that he takes it literally. That Hashem understood the power of avodah zarah. Lefichach nitna Torah memshala ba. Therefore, the Torah gave Tumah powers. Even he can actually perform miracles. This false navi can stop the sun. Has that power. Al tishamalai. Don't listen to him. As we learned that Avraham Avinu gave presents to his kids, he gave them the koyach of tumah and kishuv, which means that it's a reality to it. Tanya, we learned. Rabbi Akiva says, "Chas v'sholem." The Akiva disagrees. Do you think the Eibusher will give them such powers to stop the sun midway? Chas v'sholem shakadosh baruch hu ma'ing milchama lo eved tzayne. You think the Abba should give the power? So who does he give the power to? We learned before there's false prophets, Hananiah ben Azoir and others. So he said, or Ella, Hananiah ben Azoir, Shemitchilas Novi Emes. He started out good. All of a sudden, Novi Sheker, something happened. So he was granted the powers as a Novi Emes, and then he retained them. But a guy who Chatchila is only a Novi Sheker doesn't have any of those powers. Interesting. I told you. Second about immediately that you get the punishment of the male, which is chenek and not the female. Normally, you say you get whatever punishment is. Because you call generally Adam Zayim if they're false witnesses, main Berlin. They get the same punishment whatever they try to mete out. But Bas Koyin, he be Sreifa, but by Bas Koyin we know that she gets Sreifa, the Ein Boy be Sreifa, and the person that she consorted with, he'll get chenek. So now the Aiden Zayim have a dilemma: which punishment should we give? As a rule, we said before, we always give the stricter punishment. Who should we give it compared to him or to her? We punish Aiden like what they try to do to him. Now starts the final and last parak of Sanhedrin, but actually there's a big machlekes is showing you this is the final parak, because it talks in the end of this parak about iradachas, which the punishment for iradachas is sayif, sword. And we already went into the chenek. Chenek is the last of the 4 punishments. So there are many Rishonim who hold that this parak, Kol Yisrael, belongs before Eila Nachnakim. But the first Rashi here on this parak says, no, it belongs right here. First it gives you all the punishments, and then it tells you about Olam Haba. Then the Achrayim tried to explain this, so why is Ir Nadachas left all the way to the end? Either because it never happened, as we learned before, an opinion that it never happened, or because the idea that an entire city should worship Azor is so bad that we didn't want to talk about it till left at the very end. And some people say that the words Kol Yisrael Yisrael, that preamble is not part of Mishnayos. That was added later on. Because the way the Mishnah started is Elu Ein Lehem Chelim Haba. The following don't have it. We didn't want to start off with a bad thing, so we added an extra clause. Kol Yisrael Yisrael Haba. Every Jew has a chelik, a share in the world to come. Big machlek of the Rambam and the Ramban. What is Olam Haba? According to the Rambam, Olam Haba is Gan Eden. According to the Ramban, Olam Haba is the world of Chis and Mesim. And the argument is, the Chassid explains at great length what the argument is, what the ultimate reward is. Dafka, a neshama inside a body, or a neshama when it's stripped from the physical impediments of a body. Shlomo says, "V'amekul tzadikim, you're all tzadikim. La'olam yeshuaretz, that you will inherit the land. Neitzah matay, all those that grew. My seed, at least for handiwork, I'm proud of. So some I ask, it's only tzadikim. Others say no. I mean, Rebbe always to point out, v'amech kulam tzadikim. Every Jew is a tzaddik. You just got to bring it out from them, tease it out. The Elush Eilam Chum Haba, the following forfeit their own Haba. And the Gemara will explain each one. Ha'oimet ain't Chis HaMesim, they don't believe Chis HaMesim. Even if they believe in Chis HaMesim, but they don't believe there's any basis for it in the Torah, they forfeit their share. The ain't Torah in Hashemayim, they don't believe the Torah is divine. And the Apokaitis, what is Apokaitis? The Gemara will explain later. Apokaitis is a very loose term, it has a lot of things. But the Gemara will talk about somebody who despises or denigrates a Talmud Chacham. Rabbi Kiva says, if you read external apocrypha, and what exactly Sfarim Chitzonim is, we'll talk about later, whether it means there's generally it means apocrypha or sifrim of philosophy that are anti what we believe in. If somebody has some kind of wound, and instead of taking care of medicine, you start saying all these different sukkim, all these different incantations. You invoke a pasuk. Any sickness gave him a time, I will not place on you. I'm the ultimate healer. Using the Torah to take care of yourself, you're not allowed to. Abba Shaul says, which either it means uttering Hashem's name of 42 letters, which is what Rashi says a few places. Others say it means just enunciating the letters of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, but reading it the way it's supposed to be read, and the Kud is not the way we read it. Shlosh Malach, now 3 kings, Ba'abba Hajjaj, and 4 ordinary people. Ein Len Cheglam Haba, they forfeit their share in the world. They forfeit their share in the world to come. Shlosh Malach, who are the 3 kings? Yerubim, we'll learn all about him later in the Gemara. Yerubim, the first king who split from the rest of the Eden. And Achav, as we know, Achav was a Russia, and his wife was even worse, Yizebel, and Menashe. And Menashe, we'll see, is a big argument. Rabbi Yehuda and Menashe, yes, a chelim haba. Menashe has a chelim, we'll see more later. So it says, it says the pasuk, Vayispal a love, and the what do you call? Vayispal a love, and he davened to him, Vayishmat Chinasa, and he listened. Hashem listened to his tefillah. Vayeshevu Yerushalayim Achad, brought him back to the kingdom, and he was a kingdom for another 30 years. And he did tshuva, and for the next 30 years, he was making amends for the bringing avodah zarah and the base, all the terrible things he did prior to that. And the Chachamim say no. The issue. You're right. They reinstated him. Did not retain his share in the world to come. No, Rabbi Huda says, "Oh, tumlach." But didn't bring it back to Olam Haba. Abba had yet who the force of the people. Bilam Harasha, even though he was a guy, but brought him in because the Torah has a parsha on him. He the one who convinced Shaul to kill David, and because of him, they decimated the city of Noy, all the Kohanim. Achi Teufel, who actually was a mechutin of David HaMelech, and he was his consultant, and we learned Pirkei Avos, Achi Teufel, David HaMelech treated him like his Rebbe. He ultimately committed suicide. And according to some Doeg, did the same thing. In fact, from here we learn out that somebody commits suicide, they forfeit the Chein and Haba. We learn out from Doeg or Achitefel and the Gei Chazi, the Shamish of Elisha, which we'll learn about later as well. To remember those four people, the world says, remember Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, because Aleph is Achitefel, and Beis is Bilam, and Gimel is Gei Chazi, and Dalet is Doeg. That's how you remember the four names. Says the Gemara, let's start going to the mission of Chesed Mesim. But why should he be punished because he doesn't believe in Chesed Mesim in the Torah? Tana, who cough up in Chesed Mesim because it denies it? You don't believe in it, so why should he be part of it? Should call me Doeg because Baruch Hu should give tit for tat. Quid for quote. How do we know I know that punishment is always commensurate to whatever you did. Shenemar, it says, Elisha said, there was a famine. He said, Shimon Hashem, you listen to Hashem's words. Koyamar, this is what Hashem says, that tomorrow will be deflation. That sailors, one saw fine flour will be sold for a shekel, which is nothing, and the sasayim sayim, and two saw barley b'shekel, those things will come very, very cheap. When it says Vayana Shalish and the Ashalamelech and the minister working for the king, when Yishmael Yoda, the king leans on his hand, as Elisha came, he said to Elisha, he was skeptical, or he scoffed at him, and he mocked him. Oh, Hashem is going to open big windows in heaven. This is going to happen. All of a sudden, yesterday we couldn't afford it, and suddenly now it will be so cheap. So Elisha told him, yes. He said, okay, you're going to see with your own eyes. You won't have a morsel of it. That was exactly his punishment. You scoffed at it, you mocked it, therefore you punished. It says, Vahila Kate, exactly what happened to him. They trampled him by Yamas and he died. Says the Gemara, the Dulma Kilas Elisha Garmala, who said it's because Mida Keneged, Mida commensurate to what he said. Maybe Elisha cursed him, and we have a rule. The Amar Yehuda said the name of Rav, that Kilas Chacham, if a Chacham gives a klala, like Yehuda, the Shevet Yehuda himself, Afila Al Chinam Hiba, even though it came for nothing and it turned into naught, nevertheless, it will happen. A Yachinam boy who always comes. And that's what happened to Yehuda when he said about himself, if he doesn't say a guarantee, Binyamin doesn't come back. So maybe that's what the reason is, because Elisha cursed him. Nothing to do with Mida Keneged Mida. So Licht of Crow should have said Vayamas. They trampled him and he died. My Bishab. Why do we need to know the location, the address? So we mean Bishad not a location. Bishad is the cause. Al Iske Shah, because he mocked the prices. He didn't believe the Nevi'us of a tzaddik. How do you know that's Chesed Mesim? Where does the Torah mention the word about Chesed Mesim? Shenemar, it says, V'nasatem mimenu. It says in Chumash, it says V'nasatem in Parsha Kairach. V'nasatem is Truma Hashem L'Aaron HaKohen. You'll give the Truma to Aaron. Now, when do you give Truma? Only when they arrived in Israel, because in the Midbar they never gave Truma. So how are they going to give it to Aaron? Aaron passed away in the desert. Aaron never entered Israel. To give him Truma, and Melamed Sha'ased Lichos. Aaron one day will come back. We had him Yuma that he'll come back straight. Aaron will come back as soon as Mashiach comes, and the Yisrael nicely Truma. People will start giving him Truma. That's one basis. But you could say that, but it says Klor the Pasuk Aaron HaKohen. You could have just said Bnei Aaron. He said no. He said, I think that Aaron has nothing to do with Chesed Mesim. And we'll learn Chesed Mesim from other places, let's see. So what do you mean Aaron HaKohen? Ki Aaron. You should give it only to a kohen when it comes to truma, because truma you have to be very careful with. Because if you are tameh, you're not careful, and you touch it, you just ruin the truma. It's a big avera. So who should you give truma to? Someone like Aaron, someone upstanding in the community, a Talmud Chacham. Ma Aaron Chaver, somebody who's very proficient in the laws and he knows it. We want people kohenim or tamid chamim so they can take care of the truma. Now we're digressing. So how do you know Taki shouldn't give truma to a kohen? He said to the people Tanakh, to the people who live in Yerushalayim, lost his manas to give their portions to kohen Leviim. Leman yichziku b'Torah Hashem in order to strengthen the Torah Hashem. So we dash and call a market Hashem yesh le'manas. Whoever any kohen that sits and learns Torah, you should provide them the truma. But they don't learn ain le'manas. Don't provide them the truma because we want to make sure it doesn't become tamei. If you give truma to a kohen and amorit, he's no different than giving it to a lion. What happens? Ma'ari, when Ari tramples or takes his prey, we don't know what intentions are. Is he going to put it away? Is he going to eat it straight away? Suffolk doid is v'oichel. Is he going to trample him and eat it straight away? Suffolk ain't doid v'oichel. Won't eat it straight away. He'll put him away for later. He's av kohen amorit. And a kohen amorit, you don't know what's going to turn out. Suffolk oichel b'tada. Will he eat it while he's still tired? Or suffolk oichel b'tumah? Therefore, you're not allowed to. It's like you're placing a stumbling block. Says, you're causing that the kohen should die. It says, if somebody eats truma, they will die because they desecrated the truma, and you cause it to happen. So therefore, you should only give to like someone like Aaron. You're causing him to be guilty of sin, of many sins. Not just the one sin. It says they see that you are causing them to do many sins. Every bite that they take or anything else because you are giving them, and they have no incentive to become tired. So let's bring other sources. Now we lost this source. If we learn from it like Aaron, what other sources are there? Remember, it says the gam hakimoisi as brisitam. I established my bond with them. Losses lahem. To give them, this is to the others, as Eretz Canaan. Lachem le'nem, it doesn't say I'll give you the land of Israel when you leave Mitzrayim and all that. Elo lahem, to the others. That means they're coming back. That's what we learned Chesa Mesa from the Torah. Shalu, meaning these Apikursim came along and asked, or the Tzlukin, how do you know? He asked him, how do you know? I have three sources, and they question each one of the sources that is not compelling. The pasuk says, Hashem said to Moshe, he said to him that you will pass away, and you'll pass away. I read the pasuk because it's very important. It says that you will pass away with your ancestors. And these people will stand up. Now, after you pass away, there'll be a whole different story. The Eden will follow idol worship. Where does V'kam? Where does V'kam go? You can read Sheichim V'secha V'kam. You'll die now, but one day you'll stand up. Kama. That's Chisa Mason. Or Sheichim V'secha. That's now. And in the future, V'kam Hamazed. The people here will betray me. So how do we read it? So he said. So I will say, V'kam. You will stand up. Clearly, Chisa Mason. They said, how do you know? But Dilma, maybe V'kam Hamazed. Maybe V'kam goes on the next part of the pasuk. Not compelling. Okay, from Tanakh, it says in the pasuk, that your dead will wake up. It says clearly, your dead will wake up. The Veilasa Yukumun and the carcasses will stand up, even if they're just a nafel and they were still born in the first place. He keeps it around the shaken up. Wake up all those who are lying in the dust. One day they will all stand up. Shai says, the eretz of tapil, because the dew from Hashem is going to wake everybody up. Clearly, it's Chizamation. Says the Gemara, who said? Maybe it's referring to, you're right, Chisa Mason, but Dilma Mason Shehechi Yecheskel. Remember Yecheskel, we'll learn about it later on as well. That the Shevet of Ephraim, Yecheskel went to the valley of bones and resurrected them. Maybe that's what it's referring to, but not in the future. Everyone will wake up. Okay, again, they approved that. Minaksubim. They repudiate that proof. For the Ksub Nechsiv, it says in the pasuk, "V'chichech," and his palate is kiyayin hatoy would be like good wine. Hoylech l'doid will go to my beloved l'meishadim for those who are straight. Doiv ve'sivsei yishayim. And those who died who are lying on the ground, once again their lips are going to be moving. That means they're going to come back to life. Who said maybe while they're in the cave, their lips will move. In fact, these are the tzlukim. So they quoting now But hard to understand that Tzdukim should be quoting Rabbi Yochanan when they don't believe in the words of Amoraim. Rabbi Yochanan said, if you repeat in this world a word from somebody who passed away, let's move. So really, it's hard to imagine this. So Tzduki saying this sounds more like minion who know everything. They just, question. Till finally, I found a pasuk that was cogent. The same pasuk before. That Hashem swore. This is the same idea we had before. Allah says, "Lahem Hashem will give to them." So lochem lehem to them. They can't the Yeshem. Others say, "Menamikah" in the following pasuk. Amalem is said, "Va'atem hadveikim Hashem elokechem," and you're all attached to Hashem. Chayim kulchem hayim. You're all living today. Obviously, if he's talking, Moshe is talking to them. Aren't they alive today? What do you mean? Pshita the chayim kulchem hayim. Elafilu b'yim. Shekula afilu kol ha'olam kula meisim atam chayim. Even a day when everybody's dead, you're going to be alive. Just like today you're alive, so too in the future you'll come back to life again. The Romans resurrects the dead. Two questions. How do you know this Chizim Mesim? And how do you know that Hashem knows the future? I know both on the same pasuk. It says in the pasuk, first of all, that's one. Number two, in the future they're going to go ahead and worship idols. So you see both answers. Think about who said this too. The Dilma, the come, who said the come goes on the first part of the pasuk, maybe it goes on the second part. Don't do the just in the future they're going to stand up and rebel or betray. Amalu said, okay, fine, at least answer. Nakutu, me, Paul, give me that. At least one of your questions are answered. The day he knows the future. We learned. Hashem will one day be a day and he knows the future. It says, same thing. With this thing here, I completely rejected the Sfarim of all of these Apikursim. They said, ain't They said they don't believe in Chizam, or at least that it comes from the Torah. I said to them, you completely falsified the Torah, and you guys came up with nothing. You say, ain't Chizam Torah. Let me ask you a question. It says in Pasuk, you insulted the words of Shlach. It says you insulted the words of Hashem. He kares tikares. What's this double speak? He kares tikares. You cut it from two worlds. Which two worlds? And then it says avoyin ba. And then it's avoyin ba still has a sin. What's going on here? He kares tikares. So right now we're not dashing we will, but right now we're not dashing the double talk. We'll say the double speak. We'll say it's one thing. He kares is one kind of a kares. That's ba'olam hazeh. You get punished. And avoyin ba, we still treat you for the sin. We'll punish you le'emas when lav lo'olam haba in the future. Why do you have to say Hikaris is one Karis? And Avoyin about the second, Hikaris itself can be divided. Hikaris is one Karis, Hikaris is a second Karis. You know how the reason why I didn't say it is because they would have come back to me and said, Dibra Torah, how many times we have in the Gemara the Torah sometimes speaks the way people speak. So that's not compelling. So we had to bring another proof. In fact, in Machlekes tonight. And between Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel, Tikaris, so one darshan, Tikaris by Lamhaza, Tikaris Lamhaba. So Rabbi Kiva actually does darshan the two words Tikaris. One is Lamhaza, one is Lamhaba. Rabbi Shmuel says, I don't disagree with you, but not from your source. I'm Rabbi Shmuel. Like Farnema says, Hashem hu megadif. So if you're going to dash in every Kodesh, it says Hashem hu megadif, that you are megadif. And according to Rabbi Shmuel, is talking about Avodah Zarah. According to Rabbi Kiva, is talking about a blasphemer. According to Rabbi Shmuel, is talking about Avodah Zarah. So the third one is about Avodah Zarah. Three creases. If you're going to dash in every time there's the word Kodesh, that it's something else, tell me what the third one is. The Chishloisha Olamim Yesh, that three worlds. El Benichlas Abalam Haza, and he Kodesh La'olam Haba. So Nichris is in this world. He Kodesh Elohim Haba. He Kodesh Tikadesh Divloshim Adam. So you have the one from Megadeth, the one here. That's the two Chris's, and here he Kodesh Kodesh. The double speak is that's how the Torah speaks. So you want to ask a question? Okay, but what do they do with Avoyin Ba? Bein Rabbi Shmuel, Bein Rabbi Kiva. They learn from Hikaris. Avoyin Ba my object. What is it with Avoyin Ba? The Gemara gets like we learned. Yachal thought I feel lots of tshuva. If this person who doesn't believe in the Chesed Meisiv then did tshuva, then maybe then should help. Talmud comes to tell you, Avoyin Ba. When do I say that they'll get punished? Only as long as he did not do tshuva and the sin is still with you, or by the Zod or whatever. Charlotte, Cleopatra, Malchus, Meir. There's an argument that Cleopatra was really the Cleopatra, or every queen is like Para is the name of every king. Caesar is the name of every king, so I think Cleopatra is the name of every queen. So Cleopatra asked Meir. So it's interesting how you see all these Tanaim, all the Rabbanim used to have constant debates with their opposition, or the nemesis, or with authorities. Cleopatra asked the mayor, Amra, Yadaina the Chayeshchiva. I know that the living who die will come back to life. The Chsiva says, there was some peep out of the ground, just like the grass peeps out of the ground. In the future, talks about Yishalayim, and it will be tunnels of and all the tzaddikim will roll to Yerushalayim and will come from there. And my question is, when they stand up, they'll stand up naked, because their clothes are rotted away, and that will be the way they bury, that's how they'll come out. He said to wheat. Wheat. You put in a seed in the ground, it's naked. Yet it comes up in the sheets and everything else. With their clothing on. In fact, we'll have the ending more needed of Samachal, the argument you're allowed to bury someone with klayim and all that. And one of the questions is, when they'll wake up, even though they're potter from mitzvahs right now, but when they'll wake up, they'll be chayv mitzvahs, and they're going to be wearing klayim. Or do we say they won't have any clothes? They'll rot by then. So it's a continuation of here. Allah surely. I'm the case. I'm Gamliel. She said, I'm Gamliel. Amrita, the Shrebichaya. You guys say that all those who died live. They turn into dust. He says, "Apostle, offer Toshu. How did they come back to life?" We have this a number of times where the daughter of the person who's asking the question says to the rabbi, "Give me a chance. I'll answer him." Shavke, leave him be. I'll answer him. And he says to the father, we have two people, two craftsmen. One guy can make dishes out of water, and one guy can make it out of clay. Tell me, who do you think deserves more credit? More laudable? Obviously, create the water. So every human being is created from semen, which is a liquid. And you have a problem, how do you take from dust and turn it into form? It's from one yes to another yes. A glass keli. Ma clay chuchis, ma the glass. That you work and you blow on it, when you these glass houses you blow, and then you create glass. Boss of a dumb, but a human being blows and he turns into whatever dish he's making there, or a vase. Nishburu yesh lentakana, yet if it broke, it could be remedied. Bossa, you melt it down again and you twist out again. Bossa v'dam sheberuch baruch hu. A human being was the Eibishter who believed that gave us our life. Allah is kamakama. Surely, if we die, we fall apart. You can put it back together again. Amalei, how would mean Rabbi? This continuation. Stop in a minute. But this means, said Rabbi Amritu. You guys say the shachli chay. Those who died will come back to life. But have after the same question, the dust. How can dust turn to life? I'll give you an example. A king. Said to servants, I want you to go ahead and use your talents. Build me this massive palace where there's no basically no materials, no water and no sand. Figure out how to make bricks and all that. And so they went and somehow or another were able to do it. The Yamim later on, Naflu, it collapsed. Amru Lahem, he said to them, Chazer Bono, I should go ahead and rebuild it. The Mokum Sheyesh offer mine. I'll make it easier. Go ahead and build it somewhere where there is offer mine. It'll be more stable. Amru Lai, ain't on your we can't. Claslame, he is angered. When there was no, I didn't give any of this up, the implements and the sand and everything else you need. And the materials, and yet you're able to. I'll give you all the materials, the raw materials. Surely you can. Same thing with a person. Now that we were alive, we just turned to dust. Surely you can turn it into a person. Leave me out to mind me if you don't believe. Say lebika. This is fascinating. Go out to the valley, and see. You see Achba. There's a mouse, and Rashi seems to say it's called a squirrel. We all from New York, we know exactly what a squirrel is. And it says here, it comes out of the sand. It grows out of the sand. That and Rashi says there are certain creatures that do not come from a progenitor. They come from the air, bacteria, from sand. And I saw all books written on this to try to work out what kind of if such a thing exists today. That you can see today, half of it is half alive, and other half of the body is still sand. Well, the Machi, you go back tomorrow. He should it came fully to life. So you see, it could from sand bring life. You'll say it takes a long time. Instantaneously. That's the problem. He says, go to the mountain, but hey, look. Today we only have one chilazon. Rashi says chilazon is a worm that comes from the water. As you know, the chilazon, that's the thing we make the blue wool. And it's a big argument what it is, whether it's a snail and Chief Rabbi Herzog and we know Gershon Kleiner. Everyone has different opinions what exactly the chilazon is. And Rashi himself changes. Sometimes he says it's an earth thing, sometimes he says it's amphibious, sometimes he says it's a sea creature. It comes out one of chilazon. And tomorrow, Yerdik Sham will rain, but the Smalikul Chazanis, we all come from. Came from the sand.